Hey friends, I'm Christy and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat. If you've ever bitten your tongue to keep the peace or said yes when every part of you wants to say no, this one's for you. We're diving into the messy, real stuff that people pleasers like me have spent years avoiding. It's time to have the hard conversations, shake things up, and learn to stand tall even when it makes waves. And I recorded this morning with a true wave maker in the mental health space. And I'm so excited for that conversation and several other incredible conversations that are coming your way on the podcast. So don't forget to follow and subscribe. And if you are interested in tapping into boat rocking energy, then I invite you to check out the Thrive Collective. It is my new membership on Circle. It is $44 a month for a few more founding members. And we'll be talking about how to use the Thrive framework to really tap into whatever thing it is that you want to pursue in your life: tenacity, resilience, heart, vitality, envisioning that outcome. And those are the things that we will meet about twice a month. And then every single week, we've got yoga and breathwork practices that help you embody that mindset as well as find calm. Because when we put out big energy, a lot of times then we need to withdraw and calm and regulate back down to a less heightened state. Because if you are a people pleaser like me and Enneagram 2, we put out a lot and it can be really difficult for us to receive. And that is what the Thrive Collective is designed to help you receive what you need, receive wisdom, receive coaching, receive wellness practices that help you. So but today I wanted to talk more about Enneagram because that is my most highly watched YouTube for this podcast, was where I went through the 9 Enneagram types. Today, I'm circling back specifically to Enneagram 2 because Enneagram 2 is the helper. And if you listen to this podcast because you feel like a people pleaser and that maybe you have put others first your entire life and you are here because you want to rock the damn boat, we will talk a little bit about how to become more self-aware of your people-pleasing traits. EnneagramInstitute.com is a place where you can find the RETI test, RHETI. It is $20 to take this test. And I took it again today because I wanted to compare my results to the test that I took back in September of 2023. I took the test, got my Enneagram type. Now, I knew I was a 2 from other tests before, but what can happen, and especially if you are a multi-passionate individual like I am, you can be spread among several different types. I looked back at my results from 2023, and I was actually a tie between type 9, the peacemaker, and type 2, the helper. I took it again today. My scores were 24 each for type 2 and type 9 back in 2023. My score today was still a 24 for the helper, type 2. It was a 21 for the peacemaker, type 9. Then individualist and loyalist. So loyalist, actually type 6, dropped to 4th place for me and was a little bit lower. I was really curious if the menopausal changes that have been happening for me over the past year would have influenced my score at all. So I wanted to do that research for you before I came on. But the questions on the RETI test are so cut and dry to me, most of them anyway, that you can pretty much figure out which one defines you best. There's 144 questions. Again, it's $20 if you take the official test on the Enneagram Institute. And some of the questions, like I said, polar opposites. So I tend to be caring and nurturing, or I tend to be isolated, or I tend to really look out for the needs of others, or I tend to only concern myself with my own needs. So when you read these questions, one of the two answers, there's only two, so it makes it pretty easy. One of two answers will jump out at you. There are a few that can be a little bit more of a gray area, but they talk about, not overthinking it. Just pick the one that most represents your behavior for most of your life. Now, there is an idea that sometimes nurture can outweigh nature. So it might be you were raised in a certain environment. Some of the questions related to achievement and goal setting, I think about the fact that my career path really defined how I went after goals and tried really hard to achieve things. Now in postmenopause, I'm realizing that I really left a lot of creative endeavors on the table or put them on the back burner as I pursued this more goal-oriented career. There can be some gray area, but when you start to read the types, then you realize how accurate this test can be. So type 2, the helper. If you are, again, a people pleaser, you are in all likelihood a type 2. And this is all from the Enneagram Institute. Type 2s are empathetic, sincere, and warm-hearted. They are friendly, generous, and self-sacrificing, but can also be sentimental, flattering, and people-pleasing. They are well-meaning and driven to be close to others, but can slip into doing things for others in order to be needed. They typically have problems with possessiveness and with acknowledging their own needs. So at their best, they are unselfish and altruistic. They have unconditional love for others. Their basic fear is of being unwanted or unworthy of being loved. And their basic desire is to feel loved. So the idea here is that as people pleasers, we do things for other people because we want their love in return. It might be a subconscious idea that you need to be loved. When we think about what's going on way back in our fight or flight brain, our brains are wired to be afraid, to spot danger. And when we feel unloved by somebody, that can feel dangerous. That can instill fear in us. There is also a second idea in Enneagram that you are in either a really well-balanced state. So if you were in a healthy level of type 2, then you are helping others, you are being compassionate, maybe you're volunteering and you're in this really healthy space of getting the rewards from that, but not feeling like you need that love and attention. When you get into an unhealthy space, you can move into another Enneagram type. And 2s, it talks about when they get stressed, needy 2s suddenly become aggressive and dominating at 8. 8 is the challenger. My husband is an 8, and 8 will push your buttons just to be difficult. We move to 8s when we feel cornered or trapped. 2s do, and we can become really aggressive and challenging. When moving in the direction of growth, then 2s become more self-nurturing and emotionally aware. So they become more like healthy 4s who are creative and independent. And I definitely can feel that way when I'm feeling more secure in who I am. I allow myself to pursue creative outlets and to tap into my creativity. I would imagine that this is where my books come from. So I wrote my sobriety memoir back in 2021. I have my second manuscript, which is historical fiction, out to some beta readers, and I'm really excited about that. So that might be my 2 aspect moving into a more healthy place of a 4. And one of the examples that they give of a type 2 is a minister who shares the joy in being a 2. She says, I like being involved in people's lives. I like feeling compassionate, caring, nurturing. I like having confidence that anyone can tell me anything about themselves and I will be able to love them. They are loving, helpful, generous, and considerate, and people are drawn to them because of their compassionate nature and their ability to make people feel really loved. So that is incredible. And then there is, of course, a shadow side. And one of my upcoming conversations, we talk a little bit about shadow work and shadow side, and two's inner development may be limited by their pride, self deception, the tendency to become over involved in the lives of others. And when I look at where being a type 2, the helper, has moved into this territory, it is when I become the caretaker at all costs. In previous relationships, I wanted to fix the other person. I wanted to be the one who not necessarily rescued that person, but I definitely can see where my need to be loved moved me into a place where I was doing things that were so self-sacrificing. And it also talks about a tendency to manipulate others. I'm sure in some ways I did that in, again, previous relationships. When I think back to maybe college days and some of the love interests that I had that I strung along because I wanted to be loved, but I didn't necessarily like that person back. When we talk about using other people to get what we need, that can show up differently for each different type. But for twos, it is trying to get that love and attention. And the biggest obstacle facing twos, threes, and fours in their inner work is having to face that underlying fear of worthlessness. And we have to understand that we add value to this world no matter what we are doing or achieving or what we are giving to others, because with type twos, that's usually a tendency to give. And going back to people pleasing, we sacrifice ourselves for others and believe that we must always put others first and be loving and unselfish in order to get love in return. So in the healthy range, the picture is completely different. We do things like volunteer for others without wanting anything in return. We are caring and concerned about others' needs. We are thoughtful, warm-hearted, forgiving, and sincere. And personal growth recommendations are offered on the EnneagramInstitute.com. So regardless of what your type is, I certainly recommend that you look for ways to embrace who you are. If you are a type 2, you are bringing a level of service that is needed to this world. So you can have people pleasing tendencies, but really type 2 is the helper. We are helping others, helping the world. We need that compassion. We need volunteers in the world. Where you can be more self-aware is to notice when you are doing that because you need validation, because you need to feel that sense of self-worth. First recommendation is to address your own needs. So if you realize that you are always giving to others, not taking the time that you need for yourself, remember, I've used this on the show multiple times. We hear it in airplanes. Put your oxygen mask on first. Make sure that you are okay before you attend to others' needs. Don't say yes when you want to say no. Don't say yes to something that you do not have the energy for. The second tip is to try to become more conscious of your own motives. So just like I talked about, are you doing it because you need validation, because you need love? Are you expecting the other person to fawn all over you because you are doing this thing? Remember, that person might not ever notice, or they might not thank you for it. Are you going to be crushed if you don't get that thank you or that gratitude? Then you are probably doing it from an unhealthy place. We can fall into codependency, and this is where it can be really detrimental to our relationships. Tip 3 is to ask what people really need first. So don't jump in and think that we know how to solve somebody's problems. Maybe they don't need our help at all, but we're so committed to helping someone else, to caretaking, as I definitely have done in past relationships, that I don't necessarily ask the person, do they need my help? Do they want my help? If the answer is no, accept that. 4 is resisting the temptation to call attention to yourself and your good works. It's funny because sometimes on social media we'll talk about like, oh, I paid it forward in the Starbucks line. And there are times where we call attention to kind acts that we've done because we want to glorify them and we want to look good. So if that is the motive, that is an unhealthy place for a 2. But if you're doing it to inspire others, just remember, like, we don't need to call attention to every amazing kind thing that we've done. Like when I used to write about my time doing Meals on Wheels, it was because I was trying to attract other volunteers into the program and not because I needed someone to pat me on the back and say, oh, hey, great, you're a Meals on Wheels volunteer. No, I was always trying to recruit. And then finally, learn to recognize the affection and good wishes of others, even when they're not in terms that you're familiar with. So you may want someone to gush over this amazing thing that you've done for them. You might just be able to say thank you, and you can take from that what you need. If you recognize what others are giving you, you will rest more easily in the knowledge that you are really loved. As type 2 helpers, we can learn not to need that as much because we are in a healthy space of self-love. I find that affirmations are really healthy here. And when I first got sober, I had to work with the affirmations, I am worthy and I am enough, every single day. And we should know that, but we don't always feel that. We are inherently worthy, whether or not we are doing things for others. We are inherently enough, regardless of how much we're doing in the outside world. You are here for a reason. You may never know what that is, but trying to force these kind acts, trying to force ourselves to do things for others for what we get in return and for that love we feel like we're missing, that is going to be often an unwinnable, is that a word? An unwinnable way of acting. So I encourage you to do the work to figure out, are you doing things from a place that you feel empty and you need that validation? How can you start to feel better about yourself and learn that you are valuable no matter what you contribute? Find ways to contribute that fill up your own cup. So I know when I was volunteering, I felt such a reward from the conversations that I would have when I would drop off a meal, from being of help to someone's family. And regardless of whether or not I ever talked out loud about that, I found joy in those little exchanges that I had between me and my clients. So there are ways that you can find this joy without it having to be broadcast to the world. There are ways that you can learn to fill up your own cup without filling up everyone else's first. I encourage you to learn more about this, learn more about being a type 2, the helper. Now, a type 9 is the peacemaker. I have always been a conflict avoider, but type 2 and type 9 have a lot in common. So maybe we'll talk more about type 9 next week, the peacemaker. But that is your little lesson on Enneagram Type 2, the helper. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your week. You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.